We should be live. We should be live. Greetings.
What's up? What's
Good
up?
morning.
Peace,
Good morning.
peace,
Good
grand
morning.
rising, grand rising.
All right, all right. So sorry, y'all, for the technical difficulties today so far. We a little late dealing with the technology, and but we always right on time. And we already have our brother Kamau out here. Kamau Shakur, Orangeburg native,
Yeah,
African Center educator, documentary film producer, doing this thing, man. And so we had to bring him through to the Gullah House Show. Greetings, Baba Kimo. What's poppin', man? How you been?
Man, I am good. I'm good. All is well here in the Berg. It's a little chilly this morning, but doing what I normally do, a little research here and what I normally do. And I'm glad to have this brother Kamau on the show here today. He's an Orangeburg native. We was talking to him off stage, and Chief, he's familiar with our area. He's familiar with our area, and he's from that North Coast Nice's area, Highway 4.
Oh
That's our
yeah,
yeah.
Kinfolk.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Dominique, you want to
yeah.
say something?
yeah, man. I mean, I'm like, it's cold over here, man, but I'm surviving, man. It's my type of weather. But me and we gonna have an interesting interview because brother, come on, man. Like we was already chopping up backstage as if we was live already, bro. So hey, I'm
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
good.
That's what's up. So, brother Kamal, man, welcome to Gullah House Show, man. We do this for the culture, we do it for the people, and we represent Orangeburg, man. So let's talk about that first. Let's talk about your native roots. What's up with Orangeburg, man? What's your
Yes.
background look like out there?
First and foremost, man, I definitely appreciate this opportunity on the show. My first time actually hearing about the show, but I definitely appreciate it. Like it's like the brother Dominique said, we was chopping it up, man, and is love when you get the same brothers from the same area. You can just have a genuine conversation and things like that. But yeah, I'm from Orangeburg, South Carolina. I was born in Orangeburg. Um, um, my family last name, my great grandfather last name was Martin, so I'm coming from the Martin family, um, who grew up pretty much and stayed off Stilton of the Hill. If you're familiar with Orangeburg, that area. My daddy, grandmother, his mother, they grew up mostly on the west side over there by St. Paul, apartments, and then relocated as he got older to Sunnyside area.
Oh my
That's where my
God!
grandma, yeah, that's where my grandma remains right now. So I grew up on the Sunnyside area in Orangeburg, Malibu apartments down the street, the drive. I was stayed on the fairgrounds when they used to have the black. They on Saturdays they had free lunch. I mean free breakfast programs, and it was called the Black Fairgrounds because up until I can't remember when they stopped it, but during the '90s, early '90s, black folks we went to that fairgrounds instead of the actual county, right? So on Saturdays they used to do a free breakfast program. Um, so that's pretty much where my roots in Orangeburg from. Then we relocated when I was 5 or 6 to Casey, Columbia, this area called Pocomo. So we was out there for 2 years, relocated to the more urban areas of Columbia. So I was raised in Columbia. Came back down to North, went to North a little bit, played football. Actually was kicked out of school and went to Orangeburg my last 3 years of high school, and graduated from OW in 2005.
But
Oh
man, you
wow.
are definitely one of us, brother. We from the
Yeah,
hill.
yeah, he every
Chief's
time.
family is from the hill. My family is from the hill. I live right around the
Yeah,
corner from Sunnyside. The
yeah,
drive. I live over by the gardens, man. I'm right by the spray park, if you know where that is. And
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah, definitely, man. One of us for sure, man. You said something earlier about being from that north area, Nice's area, Highway 4. Oh yeah,
hmm
Yeah, that's the roots. That's
oh
the
yeah.
roots.
That that's the roots. Chief's Chief's family's from right there on the hill. His grandmother's
hmm
house is still on the hill, right off of Golf
okay.
Avenue. And so, man, you one of us, man. But go ahead on, man, and tell us about your unless Chief want to say anything. But
No, I'm cool. Go ahead, bro.
Well, go ahead on, man, and tell us what it is you do and about your documentary.
Okay. I am right now an educator, high school teacher here in Jacksonville, Florida. I teach social studies. Up under that, I actually teach economics and personal finance and money management. I taught world history for 2 years. I just completed my master's in teaching at University of North Florida. Um, when it comes to the African centered education, that was my actual first time teaching through African centered education in 2016. I was teaching at Uhuru Academy in Columbia, South Carolina, which is
Okay.
was the sister school to Uhuru Academy out in Texas, started by
Bye
a
bye
Pan
me.
African scholar named Baba Amin.
Yeah.
So it was in
Yeah.
2016 um, where I got introduced to African centered education when I was given the opportunity through the family. Ms. Washington, my colleague, E.I. Keontae, they see me in the community doing work through my youth organization. So prior to that, I had a youth organization in 2013. So for like 3 years, I'm a grassroots brother. So
Yeah.
3 years I catered to West Beltline is most of the area I grew up in Columbia. So we talking about the colonies, the Bishop, Creston Manor, this whole little area. If you're familiar with Columbia, that's like, the worst area in Columbia.
Yeah.
A lot of gang stuff went on down. So that's my area. That's where I grew up at. I came back home from college. My mother still was staying there, my little brother and everything. So I say, you know what, let me do something about these conditions. So I became an advocate for education. And then in 2016, I was given an opportunity to teach at Uhuru. And it's there when I started to dig deep into different scholars who had the different methodologies and pedagogies into what's called African Centered Education. And then being able to teach it for 1 year and see the response of the kids. That was more important than anything because everything was in theories. But
Mm.
to see how the kids responded and then reading and studying, right? And then studying indigenous cultures and things like that. I'm like, yo, this is big. This is what we need
Yeah.
as Black people. And from there, I just became an advocate for African Centered education. Um, and I knew probably in 2021, I knew I wanted to do a documentary on African Centered education. I just didn't. It was just a thought. So last year, once I got into the program to get my master's, at University of North Florida, I'm surrounded by all these white people, right? And on the master level, learning the different theories of James Banks, who's the father of multi-coach education, which
Mm.
is a means of trying to include many different races, if we want. I don't like using that term, but many different races in educating them through a European lens. um, so it was last summer when I knew I had the funds available. I said, you know what? Let me just go ahead on and get with a brother who I met like a month ago who do films. And I said, you know what, bro? I'm gonna reach back out to you because I want to do a documentary. And I got with him last summer and reached out to a few brothers who I've known personally, a few scholars who I know personally. One of them I didn't know who's out of Clark, Atlanta, and I pretty much gave them the idea of what I wanted to do. And then more importantly, I put together 10 questions
Mm.
and I sent it to my videographer. He expanded the 10 questions to like 30 questions. I'm talking about thought provoking, critical thinking questions that I sent to these scholars. And they was like, ooh, they said, okay. They said, you know what? And Dr. Chica out of Clark Atlanta, he said, brother, he said, people don't ask the right questions. He said, when I saw the list of questions and read them, he said, but I saw how serious you was. So that's why matter of fact, he had a conference in Jacksonville. He was the first interviewer. He had a conference in Jacksonville. Um, After he was finished the conference, took a Uber to the hood because that's where we
Right.
shot his his piece 3.5 hours. And he told me out of his mind, he said, brother, I don't do this when I go on conferences. He said, but when you sent me those questions, I knew how serious you was about doing this documentary. Um, so that's how serious I was. That's how the documentary uh, pretty much started. And also, like I said, going through these courses, everything I did at UNF coursework wise for my master's was through the lens of African Student education. period. And even the white professors at the school couldn't deny the information. Because if you're looking at culture, education from a culture lens, you can't deny what everything our scholars was talking about that I was just bringing to the forefront information that's been out since the 70s from Dr. Asa Hiller, the third, right? Dr. Leonard Jeffries,
Right.
you know. So this
Right.
information we've been had, it's just the fact that I felt like now I need to take what they had and what they put out. Dr. Alfred Butler out of Howard University, who did some research in the 80s on the learning styles of black kids,
Mm-hmm.
um, and said, okay, this is where we at. This is stuff we've been had. So whatever James Banks talking about, whatever Cross is talking about through this multicultural lens, we already talked about. We talked about because we understand and know this through a cultural lens. So all of this made me just say, you know what, let's do this documentary. And so the documentary is exposing the world um, of all races of African-centered education as the solution to the problems in the black community. Because when we look at educating our kids, we're looking at the future. We're looking at the future, period. And if we see that we still going through these cycles of trying to elevate ourselves through self-determination and we're not getting there, then we have to look at how we teaching and preparing our kids.
Yeah.
Because if educating is supposed to take is that it's supposed to provide our kids with information to take this information and then use it to solve problems and issues in the community. If we're not doing that, then what are we doing? So it's also, showing the world that hey, if we're looking at Europeans or white women who make up 85% of the teachers in America, if we keep sending our kids to them and we getting the same results, then over 150 years, this is why
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Carter G. Wilson put out the miseducation of a Negro.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You see, so
Absolutely.
so I want to show the people that it is another way, and it
Yeah.
always has been.
Right.
We still missing the marks. So I know I
Right.
started rambling, but yeah, that's pretty much what the
No, it's
documentary
great.
Good. You
documentary about,
good.
and it's using my life. It's actually using my life as a chronological story into showing the world how African centered education is liberation. It is
Yeah.
changing consciousness. So we go real deep into culture. We go real deep into the history of African centered education and everything. So it's a very great documentary.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. You know, I appreciate the long-winded explanation because that's what I do. So you ain't got to worry about that, right?
All three.
But but we're all learning. We're all learning, man. And the power of the words that you just blessed us with. It just shows how, like you were saying, you know what I mean. You from Orangeburg, you know what I mean. Grew up in Columbia, went back, graduated from Old Dub, and you went on to school. Just from what you got on, I'm assuming you went to Howard,
Yes. Yeah.
HBCU. So we're talking about African centered education in the context of, let me say, HBCUs. Um,
Mm.
did you receive an inkling of an African centered education within your HBCU experience? And if you did, what was it?
Mm. Um, the thing about HBCU, and I'm speaking from Howard University, that's where I went. It's each student has their individual experience, right? So um, I can say this in two ways. I I didn't receive any information regarding African centered education at Howard University, but my experience at Howard uh,
Mm,
helped me look at the problem, one of the problems in our community, and said, you know what, that's what I want to tackle. And
mm,
what I mean is, prior to going to Howard, see, I'm from low income neighborhoods.
mm-hmm.
Everybody I dealt with up until that point was from the hood.
Yeah.
That was who I was comfortable with. I just left Kansas and graduated from a junior college where I was in the streets heavily doing some things. So when I got to Howard, it was like a refreshing renewal. I mean, I got to my dorm room and fell on my knees and cried because it was that year before I got there I was out of school for 2 years. I played football. I was out of college football for 2 years. I never was redshirted. I was that type of athlete. I was ranked in the state at OW. So I was trying to find myself. So when I got to Howard, I was still wearing Dickies and Soldier Reebok.
You was
I
trapping.
had a bald head, at 19. And my mentality was just street. So um, some of the smartest, well-educated, richest black people in the world come out of Howard University, send their
Right.
kids to Howard.
Mm-hmm.
I never been around that population of black people. So what I came to clash with, it was like a cultural clash for me
Okay.
because the students treated me like the field nigga.
Mm. Like
When
you
I
was out of
had
place.
females tell me, "Oh, you don't look like you should be. You don't look like you go to Howard." Right? Um, my academic advisor, I had the full Dickie outfit on one time, and people say things don't know how it affect you. And I never forget, he looked at me, he said, "Man, you walking around looking like the help." You
Whoa.
know,
Oh.
yeah. And he didn't realize how I took it. He was just thinking
Wow.
what you know. So my
Yeah.
experience was to the point where it was like I told my homeboy, I play football, but I say, man, these are the black people that's going to be leading or the voice for the black community in America. Now, the thing about it, every student that I actually taught with at Howard, this is no lie, used to ask questions. These students, these black kids will go to Howard for that black experience because they grew up in predominantly white neighborhoods. So
Mm-hmm.
they can identify with being oppressed from a personal level. We could talk about being oppressed
Right.
as black people, right?
Right.
Institution, racism, all of this, because they're gonna look at us as niggas, no matter what.
Exactly.
But they couldn't identify with growing up in low income neighborhoods. So how
Mm-hmm.
can
Right.
they look at the common problems in the black communities and never had, you know what I mean? So that's how I looked at it then. So this is what helped me say, okay, I need to be a voice for my people that I know was suffering, that was living in impoverished, communities, wasn't getting good education, teachers not giving them hope or judging them because they came from a different neighborhood. We from Orangeburg.
Yeah.
It's the difference
Yeah.
when you walk in that school and they know you from the Beverly Road versus coming from Hilton, Stilton, right?
Yeah.
Teachers gonna look at you different. They're gonna look at you based on your family. Oh, you such
Right.
and such grandson? Oh, that's
Yeah.
your last name? Oh, them kids. So that affects how teachers look at you. So when I saw for me, I wanted to be that voice. So that was my experience at Howard. That was my experience. I knew that I wanted to speak up for our people because the black people I was meeting in Howard with the best intentions, I'm not knocking them. I looked at it, okay, if you treating me like this, I'm a grown man. How you
Right.
treating our kids?
They
You
had boots.
know,
Right.
what what you say in these meetings when you're around these white folks? You
Mm-hmm.
understand
Right.
what I'm
Right.
saying? Like,
Right. Right. Right.
so that was my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You know,
Sound like
that's
they had
interesting. Yeah, go ahead, cuz.
Yeah, it sounded like they had some bourgeoisie tendencies, man. I mean, we've been dealing with
Yeah,
that during
yeah,
enslavement. You got the bourgeoisie Negro, then you got the quote unquote field Negro. The bourgeoisie Negro, because of his approximately, because his distance to whiteness feels like, you know, I'm a little more
Yeah.
privileged, better than you.
And
yeah,
it's important. It's important that you tackling it. You're saying that the solution is African centered education. Period.
yeah,
If we teach the babies early on the African center, they can learn about themselves as African people. They can develop positive self esteem around their identity and their image. All these things, man. We've heard it and we've seen it for generations and generations. This African centered educational movement growing and developing. I think now it's really in a high stage because we actually have those like yourself who have gone through even the institutions that they put out there for us to get miseducated through. But because you coming from the hood, you was able to peep all the devilish stuff and pimp the system and not get pimped by the system. So now
Mm,
you back in the community now giving education to the folk that really need it, the ones who want to do the most with it. It's powerful. It makes perfect sense. You know, we talk about how Malcolm went through prison to come out an African-centered educator, but you went through the HBCUs and came out African Center educator, and right there in the street. So one, I want to commend that because most people who get them degrees, man, they run away, they join some
Mm-hmm.
frat, and they have bougie ambitions. But you kept it hood, man. You know, you kept it grounded with the people, and that's commendable. I see that even we talk about Orangeburg, just to bring it back into some perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Myself and Baba Kimo, we create this show so that we can highlight in part, the Orangeburg Gullah Geechee heritage, the African heritage of our lineages right there in Orangeburg. That's why we were so excited, one, that you was coming on the show because you were native. You from
Mm-hmm.
there. You know what I mean? I mean by lineage. There's people, I ain't born there, but I'm from there. My mom was from there. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's a lineage connection to the bird, right? And we really pioneered education for the state in
Mm-hmm.
terms of Orangeburg, in terms of Baba, you were talking about the Great Branch community, and just the kind of quality of educators that we have a tradition of creating over the centuries, bro. Like Orangeburg is already like a little college town, so we have like a legacy of education being one of our values. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not cool to be a dummy in the bird. You got to at least be a little smart. You
Yeah.
gotta be intelligent in the bird. You know, and so to take African centered education back to a place like the Berg, I believe, would help for us to create new communities,
Mm-hmm.
new situations for our people. You was naming the neighborhoods where you lived at, where your people were at, but in a lot of those areas, man, we got to repair the damage. We gotta
Mm-hmm.
restore the community, and African centered consciousness is a real big part of that. I want to ask you on behalf of the people there, um, what is your plan in terms of like getting it back to the roots in Orangeburg? You got any plan for the bird?
Not immediate plans, honestly. Um, Orangeburg definitely needs some type of some light shine on it. One thing that when I was in high school, I always considered myself from Columbia. But when I got the OW and like I say, playing football, my coach, my junior year was Dwayne Harper. Um, Dwayne Harper played in the NFL. He went to state. He's from Orangeburg. Went to OW.
Right.
Went to South Carolina State. Went to play pro. One thing I noticed that, and this is where we got to work at better in Orangeburg is really taking care of our brothers and sisters that leave so they can invest back into the community.
Right.
Mm, yeah.
Orangeburg County, not just Orangeburg itself, Orangeburg County
Mm-hmm.
has a rich history of athletes playing on a professional level. Dwayne
Yeah.
Harper, Dwight Harper, Artorio Freeman, Alex Barron, who was Coach Barron's son, Tim Jennings,
Yeah.
Woody Dantzler,
Yeah.
Shelton Benjamin went through the wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So our
Mm-hmm.
girls basketball team, when I was in high school, hadn't won state champion like 2 or 3 times. We was a 4A school. So what I if I want to when I bring anything to Lawrenceburg, I want to bring the mentality that we need to mold our kids so when they do go off, they can come back and invest in the community. Because right now, what you see is in Orangeburg, I was when I went back home a couple of months ago, a lot of businesses don't have workers,
Right.
and I'm seeing all these help wanted stores shutting down early because the teenagers are not working. Now, when I was in high school, everybody had a job. My first job was at McDonald's, right there across the state. Everybody was working. So to see Orangeburg slowly fading away because the kids are not going to school. That's why Orangeburg has dropped from 4A to 3A and all that type of stuff. The kids are not working. So eventually I want to bring back a mentality
Mm,
to help rectify that and to uh, talk to certain individuals about how to treat our athletes that go off to these colleges. And like you said, they'll go off and don't come back and invest in the community. because if we're not collecting, this is a community issue. So, um, what I truly want to do as my life start to, as I get older, I want to go back to Orangeburg and eventually start up an African Center School in Orangeburg. Because
Powerful.
number
Wow.
one, it's a lot of land. Number two, Orangeburg County is the most populated county of black people in the state of South Carolina,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's a lot of us there who need to be taught by
That's
us
right. That's
and the
right.
significance and importance of this, where we can see a change. So eventually that's what I want to do in the long run, because that is where I'm from. Like I say, anything immediately because I'm here in Jacksonville and I'm doing some things here, but as I grow older, my grandmother, she has a house there and things like that. I have family there. And I mean, at the end of the day, I love Orangeburg because of the land, it's country, it's Southern, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm a Southern gentleman. So at the end of the day, I do want to go back home, and I want to start an African Center education there, grassroots. After I had finished doing what I'm doing through my journey of life, so eventually that's what I want to do.
Right on.
Man, man, I commend you, man. I'm older than y'all, man, and I'm glad. It makes me proud to see this happening with you young men, because I came up through all of that stuff, man.
Yeah,
I've been working at large corporations. I was in I was in the hood. I was in the hood in the South Bronx. I was in the hood down here in Orangeburg. So man, y'all make a older guy like me feel good. I see the potential. I see the
Yeah,
potential,
man.
and it makes me proud. That's why. This is why TV and myself started this show, so we could
mhm,
shine some light on the Berg, because the Berg has a dynamic history. It has a
yeah,
large history, but a lot of people don't know about it. We
Mhm.
do this all the time, man. We do it through our family history, through our family lineage and everything. And man, like I say, man, I'm just happy to see uh, young men of your caliber, Chiefs caliber, and now we kind of Dominique is following us. Dominique is the future. When Dominique
yeah,
gets to be our age, he gonna remember us, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
man.
it's gonna continue.
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
I want to
Baba,
add.
Baba, we always talk about the effects of the Great Migration that it had on black folk
Mm,
in general. But we always looking at Orangeburg because we do genetic genealogy,
Mhm.
DNA testing. We do the studying of the records. So we put it all into perspective. We understand how families are interrelated. Generations ago, people don't even be knowing that they kinfolk. And
mhm,
we dig into the African history of Orangeburg. We found ancestors who was brought directly from Africa to Orangeburg. We found relatives in Africa through DNA that are still there where they took our ancestors from. And
mm,
so we've connected with these people. And so when we talk about like the African connection between Orangeburg, the black people in Orangeburg, like you said, we the blackest county.
mhm,
We the blackest county. And before it was a county, it was a district that included the other predominantly black counties around us, like Bamberg. Bamberg used to be Orangeburg.
Mhm.
Aiken used to be
Bonner.
Orangeburg. So we're talking about like the heartland, the center of South Carolina, where probably the bulk Africans were really at by the time of the Civil War.
yeah,
Um, and then us making up some of the bloodline descendants that's out here moving around the world. I'm in Freetown, Sierra Leone. You know what I mean? So
mm,
you down in Jacksonville. Baba, he been in Orangeburg for the last 20 years, but he was up in New York.
mhm,
Dominique, he ain't even set out to the world yet. He gonna take him by storm. So it's
mhm,
like, Orangeburg creates a certain pedigree
yeah,
of intellectuals. We just got a certain culture about ourselves. I
Mhm.
grew up in PA. I used to love reaching Orangeburg. I couldn't wait to reach Orangeburg because I knew it was going to be a completely different cultural experience. I was going to walk around with with my socks off, shoes off. I was going to climb the pecan trees, eat pecans. So I said, You know, so I
Oh,
Oh no,
oh,
no.
he went
I
out.
lost the neck.
But anyway, man. But anyway, man. Oh, there he is.
There you go.
But yeah, man.
yeah, sorry.
I
Somebody
came up
tried to
that
call
way,
me.
man. Like I was telling y'all, I've been in the corporate world. I know what the racism was like. I mean, I know how they treated us. And I was the only one when I was coming up. I was the only one on my block that was going to a real job. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else was doing their thing. You feel me? And it- uh I'm kind. My words just can't come. But man, it's you're inspiration, man. You're inspiration. You
Yeah,
really
you
are.
I
inspiring
want
me.
to,
And I want to add earlier to what you said. You said Andre has a dynamic history, and we have the potential to have an even brighter future.
Yeah.
oh
I
yeah,
am, and so many others within the community, within the county. I mean,
yeah. Hey, brother, come out.
Yeah.
This brother Dominique is a gifted researcher. You can give him a topic, and he will extract the Africanisms from it. He will go and find our story in it. So this brother is very gifted, particularly with Orangeburg. And as
Okay.
an educator, I just wanted to ask you something, right? Because of course, when we talk about teaching our babies, um, how much or how important is the local history, the local African history within the curriculum for a local African population, for a local African student base? Because Dom does a lot of research. He's always finding Africanisms within Orangeburg culture, within Orangeburg population. In the situation, like, say, for instance, you had your school going to Orangeburg in the future, right? How would you and how do you suggest that African Center educators extract the Africanism from the local culture of the students, the culture of the history of their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents? How do we include that into the local curriculums, or are we just like focusing on like a broad African curriculum? Do we include the local histories?
Yes. Yes. What usually, and here I'm looking at it through the lens of modern schools. Usually, when you look at it from a history point of view, see, African Center education is not just history, right?
Mm,
Um, I sent some information to a friend, great friend of mine, good sister of mine. She's getting her doctorate degree, and I sent her some information on African Center education, and she, but it was all the methodologies and the theories and the pedagogies in it. She thought it was a history course because her
mm-hmm.
mind couldn't get past the fact that this is a cultural education.
mm,
So I say you have two parts of that. You have history. History, you can teach history through the local lens, right?
mm,
So for example, I'm here in Jacksonville. If I'm teaching, they have local history in the course of a history class here in Jacksonville where you're learning about the local heroes and sheroes, right? Uh, if we looking at it from an African center education point of view, then you're going to be learning. You can learn about your local history of of how Black people evolved throughout Orangeburg, right?
mm,
And I'm talking about as far as finding out, as you said, where we came from out of Africa, and then connecting the cultural connection through how we use our culture to survive, maintain consciously through slavery,
Right,
and then look at the remnants that we developed over those hundreds of years and what we do now, you know, as a means to identify ourselves as
right,
African Americans, right? So you can do it that way through a history. You can branch it off and have a class just to speak on culture, right? One thing I do is when I teach history, like in the school system, I make it relevant because students think it's just old information. They don't, so what, I connect it to them in ways. I may ask them, okay, in your household right now, do you know who your grandfather is? Do you hear stories about your great grandfather? Do you hear
mm,
stories about your
yeah,
great great? They be like, yeah, yeah. I said, well, you're
yeah,
learning history. Now they can see
yeah.
themselves in this story,
That's
Good.
right?
right.
That's right.
So that's the whole thing with African American education. we have to see ourselves in the narrative. And when we see ourselves in the narrative, it takes what happened 500 years ago and making it relevant to today. But you're setting it up as a curriculum. You see what I'm saying? Then you could bring in and teach culture. Then you can teach economics, right? Then you could teach political theories. What was our political system in Sierra Leone,
Right.
right?
Right.
Was it what white folks call democracy, which is a representation government? Because we do know we always had a council of elders,
Oh
right?
yeah.
How does
Yeah.
that translate now to what we do in the black families now? Oh well, when I need advice, you know who I'm calling? My
Elders.
grandmother right there in Orangeburg on Sunnyside. You see what I'm saying? So I'm getting that
There you go.
counselorship
There you go.
from the elders. You see, so we
There
have
you
to make it relevant and understand to develop the consciousness to be able to teach this and say, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We do this every day. Being aware of it is important because once we being aware of it, we can be strong and proud of it. So that's how I would look at it in
Absolutely.
infusing, African-centered education from a local level. And then if we talk about abroad, we can go all the way back to Kemet, right? We could talk about the Mali Empire. We could talk about the Moors in Europe, what happened to the Moors after they left Spain, how they
Mm-hmm.
influenced the Renaissance of Europe through the artistic level, right? We could talk about the natives here in South Carolina. We could talk about the Geechee population out there in Southeast Georgia, the connection. So the Haitians after the Haiti Revolution, you know what I mean? So
That's right.
it's many
That's right.
ways we can do this. But this is where the responsibility falls on the educator. The
Yeah.
educator have to know that. So the
Yeah.
educators need to be educated on how to do this because they
Right.
don't know. The ones I'm meeting, they don't know how to do this.
That
You
makes
see what I'm
sense.
saying? And that's what this
I hear
documentary
that.
about too, really
Man,
exposing to the
man,
educators. This
Yeah.
how you
man,
can do this.
Chief, Chief. This brother sounds like our kind of guy, man. This is what we do. This
Yeah.
is what we
Oh
do.
yeah.
Even though
Oh
we do
yeah.
it from a lineage perspective, we do it through our family history and everything. But man, you need to be down with us, man. Chief just did his thing with the Mali Center in Sierra Leone.
Yeah.
Am I
Mm,
right, Chief,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
education thing? We have, we have network with people doing the same type of work that you are doing, man.
Oh
This is
yeah.
this
We
this
belong. We
this is
definitely
great.
belong to the.
You mentioned
We
several
definitely belong.
things that we talk about all the time. The Mali
Yeah.
Empire, all these things we talk about. And we can connect all of this from Sierra Leone to South
Absolutely.
Carolina.
And you talking about the relevance,
Absolutely.
like you remind me of Dr. Greg Carr when you were saying making it relevant, like using that Africana framework. So I'm feeling that, man. I'm on that 100%, man. Like
Yeah. Espe-
yeah.
Let me ask you this, right? Especially in the case where we have the current administration coming to power, and we have the fears that our people have. We have the real legislation coming down the pipe that is attacking African education, African centered education. Um, I seen something recently where people are now beginning to partner with churches so that they can have places where they can have like Saturday school or
Mhm.
school during the week or after school programs. When I was growing up in PA, we always had after school programs. We always had somewhere where when school was over, we could go there first before we went home. We
Mhm.
go there, we do our homework. We got tutors, the elders be around. We have a little recreation and things like that. But even in my community, it's a lot different. Even those institutions have become integrated to the point that a lot of the directors don't even look like us no more. So
Mhm.
now I'm thinking about African centered education and utilizing the institutions that already exist, that's already there, involved in the educational process. For instance, the church has Sunday school. It has it's teaching something already. You understand? It has a curriculum, it has an educational system in there. And it's
Yeah.
impacting the way our people see ourselves and see the world. And so I know that the goal of African centered education is to provide African people with an African centered consciousness. The consciousness will allow us to address our issues, our basic survival issues
Yeah.
of defense, security, politics, economics, all the other stuff come in after you develop the right consciousness. Because right now we have a completely Americanized, Western Europeanized conscious, and this is what the scholars for generations have been pointing out. They've been highlighting, like, yo, man, look at this, stolen legacy. They went into Kemet and took everything from us and took it back and turned it into Greek philosophy. They stole our ideals. And so, just having that, we had a whole century of scholarship leading up to this point where we are now. It looked like now it's like implementation time. Now it's time to say, you know what? Against all odds, we're going to have a curriculum that every parent can teach their child.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to wait to send them out to a school. A woman who loves her children can sit down and take these courses, take these classes in her own time, and then educate her babies accordingly. I like what you said about the education is not just history; it's culture as well. To put it into proper perspective, that the history and the culture go together, and we have to see them distinctly as two separate things working together. We can't see it as one big thing. That's very, very important, because oftentimes that's exactly what we do. We cram it all together.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate what you were saying about just looking at the culture locally and utilizing that so that the individual student, the child, the person, can see themselves within the lesson. They can see themselves within everything else that they're going to learn and be an extension of it. Because like Baba was saying, that's exactly what we've been doing. Starting with Orangeburg, starting with our lineage, reconnecting, learning as we go, educating people in the family about what we find out. And so African-centered education seems to be something that we need to get in every home. Not necessarily every school, but in every home. And I come from the movement too, man. Like Baba was saying, we have a lot of the same ideals. Once you said Baba Amin, I already knew what it was. Yuhu Academy, I already knew what it was.
Exactly.
That's squad right there. So we
Yeah.
working with a certain level of African-centered consciousness that is not just to make you know some information, but it's so that you can apply it towards our liberation struggle. We trying to get free. We still not free. There's no way we can be free with our minds in this state. Can you talk about the relationship or the role that African-centered education plays within the overall political, economic, social liberation of African people, not only in the United States, because even here in Africa, I've been here for 12 years, brother, the education is not African-centered. The education, listen, once they leave the village and go to school, they're being taught something completely different other than their history and their culture. And then their personalities become estranged at the village level. And these people go out and they don't have that foundation. I think that's the same thing that happened to our people that ended up fleeing the South and going to the North once they were severed from their roots. But this is the thing. How do you see it, the African education, as it relates to the global liberation struggle? I'm asking it broadly because I know you're gonna knock it out the park. But from where you are right now, with your documentary, with your years of education, with your background, you grassrooted, you personally, how do you see the next few stages going, man? Because something is in the air. Something is in the air.
Yeah. That's a very good question. And working on this documentary definitely helped me see things on a global scale as well. One thing we have to understand, no matter where we at, no matter where a black person is located through the diaspora, if it's a black person there, they working on something just like this. They doing some type of liberational work, right?
That's right.
See, one thing I learned in Dr. Carr class was when our leaders got killed, got assassinated in the 60s, King, Malcolm X, our movement had to go underground
Yeah, man.
because we was putting a target on our back. It was a hit list going on. So brothers had to make sure that we preserve what we were doing by doing this thing underground. So it's always going to be a movement, no matter what. The strong will survive. So what we now see and understand from an educational level is that it's culture more than anything.
Anything else?
I was at a Professor James Small's lecture back in 2019, and he
Oh
stated
yeah.
that before Dr. Asa Hillard III passed away, he said he told him that let my people know that the political and economic battle won't mean nothing if we don't win the cultural battle.
Mm. Mm.
African-centered education gives us a step back to really understand what culture means. Through my experience talking with people and working in the community, in the schools, wherever, we don't have a true understanding of what culture means. Any term, anything that we learned through Europeans, we have to now reevaluate that.
Yeah.
When we say terms like music is culture, that's a misnomer. That's wrong. Music is dependent on culture. Culture is independent.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Music expresses culture.
Mm-hmm.
Politics expresses culture.
That's
Economics
right.
expresses culture. Culture is independent. Culture is your first learning system that you learn through energy, that you learn through your parents, your community. White folks call that social culturalization, right? As you develop, right?
Right.
Now you're getting socially culturalized through your environment, through your language. This is before you turn 6, right? So you're learning all of this. Your perception of this world is already, you already have a perception of how you see this world by the time you're 6 years old.
Yeah.
So African centered education takes you back to that consciousness where you seeing culture as so important that you won't sell it, that everything
Mm.
you do now, you don't talk about doing it for the culture, you just do it,
Yeah.
right? Anytime you see now a generation in our 20s and 30s now saying, "Oh, let's buy black, let's do this, let's do that." Okay, do your kids are you teaching your kids? And when I mean teaching your kids, are your kids seeing you buy black? Are your
Mm.
kids seeing you reading black scholars? Because then
Right.
if they don't see this, by the time they 25, they're gonna be saying the same thing you said 25 years ago, right?
Right.
So African Centered education on a global scale shows us how to respect our culture to the point where we're building everything in the honor of that culture. And everybody do this. I was just teaching at an Islamic school at the beginning of the year, Islamic school here in Jacksonville. The brother, he was a teacher for 30 years, and he this is a private Islamic school, and me and his brother Muhammad sat down through the interview. My interview was an hour long. This brother was telling me everything we're talking about now, but through the lens of Islam. He said, "Man, this is what he said, this is what y'all need." This Islamic brother wanted to build an Islamic school, a private school where he can teach their culture to their kids.
Right.
So this is white people do it, the Chinese do it, because they understand culture. They
Mm-hmm.
understand that as long as they marinate their kids in their culture as early as possible, once they get out into the world, they're going to be okay because they're comfortable. We know that culture builds your self-esteem.
Yeah.
It builds the way you see yourself.
Absolutely.
It builds
Absolutely.
integrity, self-respect, honor. Once you have all of this foundation with you, you go out into the world and everything you do is in honor of your culture. So
Absolutely.
that's how, on a broader scale, that's where we need to be at because we'll sell who we are so much.
Yeah.
This is, and I had a mentor a couple years ago. I was discouraged talking about a situation back in 2015, and and that's why I love talking to the elders because uh, 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 doctor told me he said, brother, if somebody can be sold, brother, they still a slave. And I was like, oh, and because he just said it so simple. So we still have brothers and sisters selling our culture because we still operate in the mindset as being enslaved. So we're mentally enslaved.
That's right.
African Centered education takes us out of that. It takes us away from it. It puts us back on the playing field. You see, and
Absolutely.
I call it cultural justice. When we peel back the definition of justice, is more than a political. ideas. It's also saying, okay, if we're going to tell people to respect us as black people, Black Lives Matter, we got to matter in our own eyes and
Yeah,
justify ourselves.
yeah,
We got to
Absolutely.
set that level of respect for ourselves, because then that's how other people will view us. Right?
Yeah.
When I sit down and talk to white people, which I love talking to them, because number one, once you get them in those isolated moments when they're away from other white people and stuff, they get to telling everything. And
yeah.
they would have these talks with me. They would have these talks. I had a white teacher last year do this program with me. Her husband is a doctor at University of North Florida. Because like this, I talk about this every day. So she said, Dante, let me tell you something. She said, now this is not coming from my mouth. She said, this is what people I'm around talk about. She said that they believe you all cannot teach your kids.
What?
I'm not surprised to hear that. I'm
You
not
Imagine
understand what
that.
surprised.
I'm saying? And I'm like, you know, now look at this. This is a white woman told me this. Among who told me what the white people in her group was talking about. So imagine now when they go into the classroom teaching our black babies.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They don't even
Yeah.
believe our black babies can grow up to teach their kids, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they sending them out in the world. So, and the hardest part about this too is also trying to get our people to understand how important this is. That's
Mhm.
the hardest part, because
That's
the
the
first thing some black folks will do is, oh man, you on that black stuff. Oh man, I
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
we look at what we do as a negative thing. Like, we got to get out of that. We got to
Yeah.
get out of that, because see, them white folks are skinny grin in your face, and they're not honest. They're not honest. They're skinny grin in your face. They know this stuff.
Hmm.
I done had so many white professors come to, oh man, you right. You right. And I'm sitting back, and but it's not their job to do what we supposed to do for our kids. That's
Absolutely.
our job.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
our job.
Absolutely. Are you familiar with Brother Baba Imhotep, the Pan African Liberation Movement in Baltimore? Well, he's another brother. They're doing their thing up there to make sure
Mhm.
that the African-centered culture reaches the masses of people. They got their own little movement up there. Not even little, man. They organizing the first race, first conference um, convention in August of next year. So a lot of people are going to be reporting to that and seeing what's up, how best we can get down, get education
Let me
back to
grab
the
my
people.
charger right quick for my laptop, brother. I'm gonna
Yeah,
be
for
right back.
sure, for sure. But
yeah.
yeah, just like what the brother was saying, man. It's a process, and when he comes back, I definitely want to touch back more on in terms of how our movement was forced underground in the '60s, and while we was underground, what was being imposed. What was being taught in the schools while our scholars had to live underground. You know what I'm saying? When they couldn't get jobs and support their families and all that, who was teaching us in elementary school under integration? What was they integrating into us? What was they giving our generation? You know what I'm saying? And yeah, brother. So I was just touching on what you were saying, man, about
Hmm.
forcing the movement underground.
Yeah.
There's been times when the movement been in full grandeur. You think about the UNIA 100 years ago, when nothing underground about the UNIA. But when you think about where the movement is today, it's almost as if you don't have knowledge of the scholarship and you don't know anything about the movement or the individuals, you don't have no connections, it is like underground. It's almost like you got to know some people that direct you to the oral tradition because
Yeah,
everything ain't written in the movement. You
yeah.
got to know the
And
Exactly.
people that can put you
Chief,
on, that trust you
Chief,
enough to put you on.
Chief, it's always been underground. It's always been underground. I
Yes, sir.
remember, I'm older, like I said before, I'm older than y'all, so I remember in the 70s, early 80s when I was coming out. I told you about how I used to run with my man Sin Q and Louis Farrakhan and Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture back in the day. It's always been underground, man. That's the way I came up. I was lucky enough to have men of that caliber showing me the way, even though I kind of strayed a little bit, but it comes full circle. It comes
Hmm.
full
Yeah.
circle, and y'all
Well,
are proof of that because
exactly.
we've all done the same things. We've all
Yeah, and
done.
that's why
Exactly.
that goes back also what Dr. Greg Carr says as well. Intellectual genealogy, knowing the people,
Mm,
knowing the organizations, and knowing who was your
For
teachers,
sure.
who was their teacher. So that comes full
That's
circle.
right. That's
For
exactly
sure.
right. That's exactly right, man. I tell Chief all the time, man. I came up. I was raised in the thing. I was raised in the culture. My mother showed me the way up on Claflin when I was a little boy. My mother was going to Claflin and she was going to State College. I remember when H. Rap Brown and those men came up to Claflin in the '60s. I was a little boy, and like I say, man, I came up through all of that. It's just, it's
Yeah.
just, it just makes me feel good to see y'all saying these kind of things, man.
Yeah.
I'm
But
an elder. I'm an elder now, and I love sharing this type of information
yeah,
with
yeah.
with
You
with, with
know,
people.
Baba, this information is liberation information. This is
It
the
is.
freedom talks. This is what our ancestors used to whisper in the bush. But
mhm,
we ain't no slaves, man. And I think that what happens is that the more we feel like we got a cold switch and we gotta tuck our chins and act outside of ourselves, I think we start to lose some of our integrity. We start to lose some of our self-respect. And our babies see that. They see us acting both ways. How we act when we in front of white folk, how we act when we in front of grandma, auntie, and them. They see it. They see that power dynamic. But we don't ever stop to explain it to them. I think that what I've been seeing personally, just as an activist over the last few years, is that there is a resurgence of what I would call black nationalist Pan-Africanism or
mhm,
Garveyism. There's a resurgence of it. And it's happening within the context of a rise in white nationalism, a rise in white
mhm.
supremacy. The Europeans are becoming more Eurocentric. You know what I'm saying? They're becoming more
They
centered on
are.
their own survival, on their own history and culture as well. A lot of them is
Okay.
leaving the church and going back to their traditional ways. A lot of them, they're going through a similar thing on their side too. And when we understand that it's the clash of the greatest when it's between us, at the end of the day, that whole integration plan is going to be ripped apart. It was always something being imposed. This is why King said we're being integrated into a burning home, burning house. This is why separation. As soon as you say, "Hey, I'm Black Power, RBG," they're gonna say you're a separationist. But do you know
Yeah.
that separatism was a legitimate political ideology that came out of our black nationalism as an oppressed people in America, and that we
Mhm.
actually have a human right to separate if we so choose. And so it's a thing where we're not having these discussions at this level anymore. And so when you look at the political education, the political consciousness in the community today in general is low compared to previous periods. When you
Yes.
see the cultural consciousness, it's low compared to previous periods. And
Yeah.
so part of what we're doing here, even today with the show, is providing people with information, our viewers with information that's designed to get them thinking, to get them interested in learning more about what is African-centered education. If you're a grandparent and you spend a lot of time with your 2-year-old, 3-year-old grandchild, hey man,
Mhm,
it's time now. They need to know the 12 tribes of the Congo before they know the
mhm.
12 tribes of Israel, right? And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it's a thing where we got to begin to instill these things earlier and without any apology or fear. And so we got to know how to work together. What you were saying about educators is one thing. The whole movement is not education. The whole movement is not educators. But our
Mhm.
educators, our scholars, are like our atomic bomb. They are the ones who understand the best way to teach us
Mm-hmm.
about ourselves and about our enemies and our condition in the world. So again, man, I just want to appreciate you because a lot of people say African-centered educator, but they're not really educators. They just know they read some books. I can tell from our discussion that long before you went off to school, you was already in an educational process within your life. When you coming from the streets, or you coming from the hood, you already within that rites of passage of
Yeah.
the black man in America. You are already learning, even if it's
Yeah.
not formally what they give us. You are already learning values and brotherhood and loyalty. You learning certain things that they don't
Yeah.
want us to have. They don't want us to be loyal with each other. They don't want us to be brotherly with each other. They always want to break that up. and criminalize that. So I definitely commend you, brother. And you know, shout out to Dr. Curry too, because he recommended that we get you on the show. He was like, man, get this brother on the show. He was like, all right, no doubt. You know, that's big bro to us, man. We got a lot of respect for Curry. He's another one who is an intellectual powerhouse in our community that utilizes his own platform to highlight elements of our history that also accentuate our culture and let you know that we come from a culture. That even in America, we produce and come from traditional culture.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
man.
That's like I was explaining earlier, Dr. Curry. And we met 10 years ago at the Boys and Girls Club. We was working together. And in 2014 to 2015, I was reading one of the books I was reading at that time, The Destruction of Black Civilization. And I was sharing everything that I was reading with Curry. This was before he got his doctor's degree. I was just, and we was in Chaplin, which is predominantly a white area. That's the elementary school we was at. So 90% of the students were white kids at the
Mm.
Boys and Girls Club. So, you know, seeing white, and I'm was going through my process of development and things consciously and reading. We had many conversations, you know, at the lunch table with the white kids around, you know, I'm going in passionately, you know, and the brother was listening, like, you know, um, and then, you know, also working with white kids, right? You know, because kids are honest. I love it because they're honest. I can know everything that goes on your household if I talk to your kid. Just give me 10 minutes with your kid. They're gonna let me know everything. You know, so
Yeah,
Oh,
working with
snap.
white kids,
yeah. They'll
working with
tell all
white
your
kids,
business.
they was telling me everything. I had two girls, two little white girls. They was 8. They was twins. You know, told me one day out their mouth. She said, "Well, our daddy is teaching us that we're better than black people."
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
You
On
know,
the low.
okay, you know, but you know, but they was bad. So this how I got him. You know, when they didn't listen to me one day, our program director, she didn't like us to speak directly to the parents. She want us to go to her first so she can talk to the parents. Look, I'm not doing that. I was like, if I'm with your child 2, 3 hours, I need to talk to the parent if they giving me trouble. So I
For
go to the
sure.
father one day, um, and it was so funny. You know, I messed with white folks' head because see what I did was his daughters was bad. Couldn't deny that. I used the same terminology that white folks use when they describing the behavior of black kids. I used that same terminology to describe his little girls. Oh, he was hot. He was so mad, and it was all on his face. So he got kind of close to me. And this white, I'm 5'8". White guy probably like 5'10", 6 foot. So he got kind of close to me, and I'm talking to him about his. I said, yeah, they very disrespectful. They don't listen. Like I'm going in. I'm using the same terminology they use with our kids. And he got kind of close. I say, man, you all right? Like I stopped in full, and my supervisor, she was right there, and I said, you okay? He said, oh yeah. Like he was hot. He said, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to really hear what you're saying." And
Yeah, you snatched his
then he
mask
said, "Well,
off.
do you know which one it was?" I said, "So they twins." I don't know, but you know,
They both
you
bad.
know, so yeah, so
Got them both whipping.
but yeah, I started to say just working with the doc during that time, man. We used to laugh because I used to play little games with him like that, you know, just to show, you know, how this racism comes out they pores, man. You know, so
Yeah,
that's a
man.
good
That
brother,
just goes to
Doctor.
show
Yeah,
too,
man.
kids. That just goes to show too, kids are a projection of their environment, especially
Yep.
at that age. So,
Yeah,
Yep.
naturally, naturally.
um,
So, we're about to close out, but before we close out, I want to give you opportunity to tell us um, how we can support, how we can rally some support for um, the documentary. You talked about it earlier, how important it is, and all the different elements, and you know, it's dynamic. You know, we just talked a whole hour about the importance of African Center education. You know, we don't got a lot of people that follow this show, but you never know. And so
Yeah.
we definitely want to give you opportunity to let us know where and how we can support you. Um, you know, with obtaining your financial goals for the project. That's one thing about it, man, is that we can do it, but we need the people support.
Exactly.
Oftentimes we're doing educational things and we got to start a fundraiser. Hey man, support us, man. We're gonna do this. And so there's no shame or no pride issues when it comes to seeking the resources that it takes to save our babies. And I fully support it, man. So how can people support you? You got a website or anything like that?
Right, right now,
That you want to give
currently,
out?
yeah, right now, currently, I don't have a website with my youth organization. In order for me to actually drop the documentary, I had to create a different uh, uh, business up under my youth organization. So right now, I'm just looking for funds. If anybody watching want to go to my Facebook page, Kamau Shakur, I created a GoFundMe for, and I'm almost to my goal. I think it's like 300 and something dollars left. I was just asking for $1,000 to finish paying the whole documentary, because it was 100% funded by myself. I didn't, when I had the funds available, I say, let me go ahead and just do this. But when I know I reached the peak on my personal finance, I said, okay, let me do the GoFundMe. So as of right now, like I said, I reached over 70% of the funds almost. Once I get a release from my videographer, I'm looking to do showings. One in Columbia, South Carolina, definitely. I'm waiting on feedback for some people. One in Atlanta, Georgia, because we visited an African Center School out there, Colombo Institute.
Okay, yeah,
Waiting on
yeah,
feedback
yeah.
from them. I'm gonna do one down here in Jacksonville. So those are the three shows I want to actually do within the next 2 to 3 months. Um, but as far as like reaching out to me, like I said, I'm on Facebook. If anybody, looking for any type of speaking engagements and things like that, just reach out to me. I'm building back up my website. Just coming off this master's program and school and stuff, it was a lot. I was in the documentary. So once I get everything, all this done again, then probably at the top of the year of next year, January, February, I have a legit website where people can go on and just see the kind of work I can do. If you follow my Instagram, Grace. It's Grace. It's an acronym. Grace underscore was Grace underscore SC. You can see a lot of things I was doing back in 2012, 13, 14, things like that. But yeah, just my Facebook page, support through the GoFundMe. Then afterwards, it'll be just reaching out to me for any speaking engagements that people may want. Um, this what I'm going to be doing is actually also highlighting this documentary to educators. I want the people to see it, but on the other end, I want educators to see this because these are the people that's learning in these PWIs or
Absolutely.
HBCUs, so they need to see this real information through scholars who've done the research, who's continuously putting out the books and things so they can understand on their level. Or maybe I need to educate myself a little more to be able to teach black kids. Because if we're talking about multicultural education, which is what they teach in all these schools, if you're getting your bachelor's or master's or whatever in teaching, they have a multicultural curriculum, urban education. If they're teaching this, they have to identify this with the African centered education paradigm because that's a part of it. They don't want to say it. So I want to also on that end start to fight for college courses that actually teach African centered education through what white folks call multi-cultural education, so we can put out because it's levels to it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how you can reach me. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's dope. Well, we have a festival coming up that we're organizing right now. It's supposed to be happening in March 2025. It'll be the first Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Festival. First festival
Okay.
highlighting the Gullah Geechee heritage of people in Orangeburg. They left us out. They got what they call the corridor. They think Gullah was only down on the Sea Islands, but when we traced our genealogy and we did the history, probably majority of the families in Orangeburg got a low country connection. And
Yeah.
so they left us out as descendants, maybe because we have produced a different kind of culture in our region, but it's the same people. And ethnicity deals with lineage, and lineage is the basis for your heritage. So we basically been defined out of our family's identity. And this is one of the reasons why we've been doing this work. Myself and Baba Kimo, we started a project about 3 years ago called Orangeburg Gullah Geechee Heritage Project. And like you said earlier, this show is a part of it, and other work that we do as well. That's not on camera and things like that. But definitely would like to invite you to come through if possible. We have a member down in Jacksonville, because Jacksonville is part of the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor as well, part of the community. I got a whole branch of my family that left Ridgeville and went to Jacksonville. They still down there. So, we're always trying to find ways where we can connect with the different communities as well. So, man, shout out to the work you're doing, brother. It sounds like you got a lot of vision. You have a lot of vision. You see it already. You're already working towards it. And, for you guys out there who's watching, you heard the brother say what you can do. Facebook, very easy, very very easy to get at the brother. Send him a message. Kamau, Kamau Shakur, Shakur, like Tupac. Reach out to the brother, man. That's what we did. We reached out. Here you go. Very, very, very powerful brother and educator that we need in our community today.
Yeah, very.
Brother, I wish you nothing but success. Nothing but success, and we're here. This is just a first meet and greet. What's up, bro? But there's a lot that we can discuss offline or behind the scenes, and try to put together to make sure that this energy continues to flow. Because, like you said, it's underground, but it's always been there. The movement is still there, and we focus on Orangeburg, man. We try to focus on the roots, make sure that we don't neglect the roots. That's what we tend to always do. We neglect the actual roots where our ancestors were enslaved, where they're actually buried at with no tombstones. And so we want to get more into the preservation work now. Now we're going to learn more about their lives, what kind of things they did. Like Brother Dominic found a mill where his family was producing, what was it, syrup?
Yep, syrup mill in our woods. Yep.
His family was producing syrup right there on family land. But when you go there, you find the kind of stuff that belong in museums. But it's right there, right now, right sitting on top of the ground. And so I think that once we do this festival, our goal as a movement is to make sure that we bring more attention to the local history and heritage of Orangeburg lineages. That's what we've been doing. And so, we appreciate you, brother. Definitely. You definitely one of us. We see you as an insider, and we see you as an extension as well. Somebody we can reach out to, especially when we want to make moves in Jacksonville. And other places where you got connections. But man, let's keep it going, brother. Let's keep it going. I want to ask you real quick: have you done any of the DNA testing? Do you know anything about your African ancestry?
That's something I actually want to do. I started a while back doing my own genealogy, but I was doing it wrong. I was going through my grandfather lineage. Then I found out, I should have went through my mother, because that Y is what
Hey,
get passed down. So
well,
I said,
well,
So
before you
I'm sorry.
go, let me just say this. Fode, the young man said that he has some Johnson lineage. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line he's
That's
connected.
us.
He said something about the Martin family. He said something about the Johnson family, and he mentioned several others. If
He
he
said
is,
Martin. Once he said Martin, I said, whoa.
if he is from Cope, Norway, Nice's area, North area, I would not be surprised if he's related somewhere down the line. Brother, I'm glad we reached out to you. I'm glad you reached out to us. I'm thankful for this opportunity to give you this chance to do your thing and say your piece, whatever, man. We're connected, man. I got people in Jacksonville. My niece lives in Jacksonville. I'm down in Jacksonville several times during the year. I'm back and forth, man. If you in Orangeburg, if you're ever in Orangeburg, reach out.
I'm gonna definitely chill. I'm gonna be home either, if not this week, probably during the Christmas winter break. I'm gonna definitely
Hey,
reach out to you. We could definitely
hey,
too,
man.
brother
I'm
Dominique, we definitely
retired
get
now.
together.
I'm retired now, brother. I'm retired now. I don't have nothing but time. If you in Orangeburg, look me up. Look,
Okay.
hit me
Yeah.
up. I'll be glad to meet you
Hey, brother,
anywhere,
come on. Hey,
anywhere in town.
hey, brother, come on. You were saying about you should have did your mother's, right? The X chromosome. But
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
also into the autosomal testing as well. The autosomal testing tests the whole genome. So
Okay.
you're going, and you have the ability to connect with direct matches. Like, we've been able to connect with a lot of direct African matches, people born in Africa that are like third cousins to people born in Orangeburg. And we did the research and realized that they was bringing Africans into Orangeburg all the way up until 1858, and
Mm.
at least, on record.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our ancestors, it could have been a great great grandma, a great great grandfather. They came over recently, and
Okay.
We've
so we
already
see a lot
proven
of
that.
direct African admixture in the lineages of Cope, Norway, particularly Nices, Cordova. These
Mm-hmm.
particular communities, we see that they have a strong African lineage that's more recent than
Mm.
what maybe a lot of people in the country would have. Similar to how it is with the Cotilda. If you go down to Africaville, right? You go to
Africa
Africa
Town.
Town, and you
Mm-hmm.
take the
Yeah.
people's DNA, they're gonna have all kind of people in Africa show up, right? Because they more
Mm-hmm.
recently removed, right? Same
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
thing when you look at some of the lineages in Orangeburg, and one of the lineages is the one that Baba was just talking about, them Johnsons.
Yeah.
So just to take
Okay.
Baba for example, right? Baba has been able to find at least 20 different
Mm.
African cousins, not only from his DNA, but from the DNA of other relatives in the family who we work with to study the genealogy of the family. And
Mm-hmm.
so it looks like there were several lineages from Africa that intermixed and kept intermixing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
They didn't stop. I'm talking about even when you look at the ethnicity relationship, looks like Igbo would have stayed with Igbo, or Mende would
Mm.
have stayed with Mende. It looks
Mm-hmm.
like they had that
We
consciousness about themselves. If you look
Mm.
at the way that they married and had children, looks like they had some back home connection.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
And so,
we, we have
it's
found
it's very visible there. I would say get the autosomal testing as well, brother. The African ancestry can tell you an X or a Y, but the autosomal testing is for those of us that are looking for the whole genome. We're
Yeah.
looking to
Yeah.
match with direct relatives, and they don't tell you an ethnicity, so to speak, but they connect
Mm-hmm.
you with family that come from ethnicities. And those people that come from ethnicities got family stories. They got history. They belong to groups that have history. And so it helps
Mm-hmm.
to unfold the bigger history of your lineage as you connect with these individuals. So I just wanted to put that out there too, man, because a
Okay.
lot of us are taking the X or the Y and saying, man, that's it. But
Mm.
about 30% of us will have a European Y.
Yeah.
About 30% of us will have a European Y. Even the brother who owns African ancestry, Dr. Kitts,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, that's his name, right? Rick Kittles, right?
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah.
He took his Y test and it went back to a European.
Mm.
And he had to take an autosomal test to learn more about his African side on his father's side. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a legitimate thing. It's just that there's a movement that I peep. There's an either or movement. Take this test and don't take them tests. But when you're trying to
Okay.
find your lineage, you're trying to learn your family, you take all tests and then you correlate the information and start making some connections for yourself. So don't you know
Okay.
don't stop looking, bro. And if you need any assistance with that, that's what we do. That's an area where we specialize in. So
Okay.
definitely reach out, man. We can assist you in any kind of way.
Definitely. I definitely will. I definitely will. Yeah. Thank
All
you so
right,
much. I definitely will.
yeah, man. So any last words, y'all? We about to get out of here, but oh man, this was a dynamic show.
Yeah, man.
this.
I really enjoyed it. My mom, man, she came. Well, if you saw me looking at the door, she came in and told us, "We need this. We need this." So, man, keep doing what you're doing. You inspiring me. You inspiring those coming behind me. Like this was
Thank
another
you.
great books, man.
Shout out to
This, this,
moms, man. Shout out
this,
to
this,
mom.
this
She's
is what we do,
she's the number
man.
one supporter of the show.
Yeah, Mama be in the comment section, got the little Claflin logo up. So yeah, that
Yeah, this is what we do. This is what we do, brother. I see Dr. Curry. He's been commenting.
Mm,
Dominique's mother has been commenting. Others have been commenting. This was a great show, man. I'm glad you had the opportunity to be on, and we would like to invite you back again sometime in the future. You
Yes,
know,
most
That's right.
definitely.
yeah.
I'm available anytime. I'm available anytime. Definitely.
all right,
That's
all
right.
right. We good to go then. We good
Hey,
to
so
go.
there you have it. There you have it. Gullah House Show, another episode with our special guest, Brother Kamau Shakur, African Center educator, so much more than that. A film producer. He's doing his first documentary. Reach out to this brother. He says simply on Facebook. Don't forget it. We'll be here in 2 weeks with another show. And if you need us, you know how to find us.
Yeah.
Salute and thank everybody for tuning in today.
Thank you.